one of the great reasons that many of us do not open to spaciousness is because it often reminds us of some form of deficiency or lack. Some traditions call this the void. Like psychologically, we wouldn't want to open to the void. It would seem like open to a deep, dark, depressed place where we are abandoned or exiled. And so often when people are just beginning to get to know this path of spacious openness, we begin to open to it. If I say, hey, would you like to come on a 10-day meditation retreat without your cell phone, without your cell phone, without your computer, without your laptop, without that thing that you can plug into and constantly distract yourself. And for a lot of people, that would bring up a great deal of fear. Because many people, they equate spaciousness with a feeling of nothingness or deficiency, a feeling of lack, the feeling of like a deep, dark, cold void, a feeling of depression or being impoverished or lacking in any kind of positive emotion. And so many of us, we avoid this inherent spaciousness, which is always here. And we fill it up with self-image. Layers upon layers of self-image. So with the self-image, we say, oh, I know what I am. I know what this is. I am this thing. I am a right-wing, God, guns, and gold kind of guy. That's what I am. Right-wing God, guns, and gold. That's what I am. And but if I open up to space, it might remind me of like a time when mother abandoned me or father disappeared, or a time when I was alone. And there's a lot of people that fall into this class. They don't want to open to space because as soon as they begin to open to space, there's like this, like a shaking anxiety that begins to come forward. And it's like, oh no, I don't want to face that thing. And so I want to busy myself. What a lot of people, they don't have the maturity to know, or the wherewithal to know that if I just sit with my anxiety for 5 breaths, for 10 breaths, for 100 breaths, that anxiety will begin to unravel, begin to empty, begin to release itself and become space. And a space that's welcoming, that has a feeling of joyousness to it, and light, and radiance, and boundlessness, and just a feeling of a lightheartedness. As you keep sitting with that space, you begin to notice it. It feels so whole and complete, welcoming. Feels like not just a breath of fresh air, but a trillion breaths of fresh air, that you are fresh air. that you are reborn in this moment. Reborn in this moment. And so it takes courage often on this path, opening to space. We mustn't be fooled by our immature ego that looks at space and quickly labels it deficient emptiness, a deficient void, a feeling of lack. We have to be a little courageous. We have to get to know. Get to know what is here. Get to know what is here. When we get to know what is here, we see that there's room, there's space for everything. And the more space there is, the less suffering there is, the less problem there is. You know, I'll tell you about a funny experience I had 2 nights ago. We had this parade here in Durango, and it's a snowdown parade is what they call it. It's a pretty wild ordeal, and you have a little girl, and so she wanted to go to the parade. So it's like, all right, we'll go. We'll go down there. And in the parade, like you're in places that are really cold at night, they do this thing where they'll bring like a hot air balloon basket on the back of a truck or a trailer or something. And, you know, there's normally a couple guys in there, and that hot air balloon's got a burner on it. So the burner is like this big flamethrower. And if you've ever been around one, like they're pretty terrifying, you know. Now on a freezing night, you know, they're kind of fun, they're kind of exciting. In a parade, they're fun and exciting. And so, you know, we're hanging out and watching all the parade, you know, cars, trucks, whatever, floats is the word I'm looking for, go by. And you know, there's a number of these balloons. So there's no balloon, it's just the basket with the burner, and they just, you know, just pulling that thing, and they're shooting out like a 15-foot flame, and they can tilt it to the right and the left, and it really heats up the crowd. Like you can feel it. You're like, wow. And it's kind of nice, but it's also kind of terrifying as well. And you know, so we were hooting and hollering while that was happening. And the next morning, my daughter and I woke up, and in my backyard, my new house, I have this incredible view, just an amazing view. And there's these 2 big mountains. One is, it's funny to even name a mountain, but one's called Missionary Ridge, and the other one's Animas Mountain. They're these big wedges that just, you know, come up out of the earth and just expand into the big blue sky. And so me and my daughter, we were outside, and I said, oh, look, honey, like there's one of the balloons out there above Animas Mountain. And the balloon was like this big, this big, you know. I could put my just little finger on it, and just the tip of my fingers, 1 digit could have covered it up. And so that's the perception, the experience of space, spaciousness. When there's space, we don't need to be afraid. We don't hoot and holler. We don't get carried away. We don't get frightened. There's space. There's room for everything to be as it is, whether that thing is beautiful, floating hot air balloon, or terrifying, a giant torch coming close to your body. Coming close to your body. There's space. I think that's one of the reasons people love the mountains. Is, with elevation, you see how big the sky is. And then there's this other quality that we begin to experience in the mountains. It's the immensity of the mountain, the solidity of the mountain. But as you feel into a mountain directly, even though it's completely solid, mountains have a quality of just immense emptiness, immense spaciousness. And so is true with our nature. It's a transcendent emptiness and space. There's a grounded, rooted, direct experience of space as a very matter of our being, very form of our being. And as we open to this, realizing space in form is the opposite experience of feeling deficient or lacking or impoverished. You no longer feel abandoned, or I'm going to use this word, or rejectable by life. We feel, I'm going to use a funny word, unrejectable. Unrejectable, unharmable, uncorruptible, ineffable. Ineffable and incorruptible. And so anyways, I hope all of you are joining me in this direct experience of spaciousness and just realizing this is the ground of our being, the ground of everything is space. And out of this space arises and can manifest the various essential qualities of being in response to life, and can dance as life, dance with life and dance as life.